wanted to make a screencast on the tools I use for making screencasts, mostly so I can remember what I do. I use three things: Snagit to actually record the video, QuickTime Player to do editing, and then Windows Media Encoder to do a final compression into a very small format. And if I could make perfect screencasts and didn't need any editing, you can actually record screencasts in Windows Media Encoder, and it's free. So if you're really on a budget, it's a good way to go. Let's just take a quick look I'm on Vista, so I actually had to download a patch to make this work correctly. Let's see. I downloaded here, and then here's the article on the patch. So you go there and you'll get that patch as well. And typically I get started with Snagit. And Snagit captures your screen both as pictures and as movies. So you have to pick the movie profile, and then you can say whether you want to do a screen, window, region. In this case, I'm doing a region of my screen. And then I don't usually use it, but there are some options on output. You can click properties, and you can take it out of auto configure, and then you can set how many frames per second. You get a few more settings here. I typically leave it in auto configure. So click capture or hit the print screen button, and it starts going. Once I get the recording done, I'll have an AVI file, and here's some I did for live sync. So this was about 8 minutes long, and so it took up 300 megabytes, too big for most purposes for getting to the web. So then I'll launch QuickTime Player, and I'll usually take my file and drag that into, or open it from inside. So then what you get in QuickTime, this is the Pro version, by the way. So you have to buy that, I think $29.99, and but you get some really nice features. There's you get down here, and there's little playhead adjustments that you can set, and then I could trim that. I could trim to what the selection is, or I can cut out. I can copy and paste in things. There's you can do picture in picture. That there's actually a lot. It's actually a lot of it seems hidden, but it'll do quite a few things for $29.99, as opposed to buying something like Camtasia Studio, which is $300. So you can add multiple video tracks, multiple audio tracks. You can layer the video, or you can have it show sequentially. So for this screencast that I did on live sync, there were a couple features I missed, so I went back to get them. So what I did was I looked at my video and edited it, and then put my playhead right where I wanted to insert the next video, and then I'm able to just come down here, grab it, and drag it right in there, and then constantly synchronizing well. Here we go. You can set it up. I set mine up for all. Okay, so here's the pasted in video, and you can see it's not even the same size. So let's go back to, boom, so that's the original video. So you can use the arrow keys in QuickTime, and okay, once I've inserted a second piece of video, I can now come to my Windows properties, and I can see the video track right there. I can come to visual settings. I can apply masks. I can do transformations so that I can rescale it if it's not the same size as the original piece, and typically I'll want to just offset it some. So let's move it over and down, and let's take a look at that. Yeah, and that's better, but I can get it if I want it all the way down at the bottom. We can just go another, what was that, maybe 20 pixels, or maybe, and yeah, so now I've got that where I want it. You can flip it and do all sorts of things, and you tell what, so when you're doing picture in pictures, you can tell it what layer, so you can move things up and back. So anyway, that's probably enough of, you can learn more about QuickTime Pro, but that's, you do the editing, get everything done, save every now and then just so you don't lose your work, and then when you're finished you can say export. Now this will be good enough typically if I want to upload it, but the files do tend to be big. You have options, and typically I would go movie to MPEG-4, click options, set a actually a lot of the services seem to like H.264, and then I usually keep my image size. I usually step this down, sometimes even lower. So I'll go to custom and say 5 here, and then just it's a matter of setting this data rate for the video. 256 is usually good enough. I usually don't get too many artifacts. I get down to 128, it starts to get pretty blurry looking. And then you come into audio, and usually I set this down to mono because it's just voice and 32 kilobits a second. And once that's all set, I give it a name. It automatically suggests MP4s, and then you hit save, and it'll do an export. And so in this case, so here was after adding all these extra files and doing the editing. It was still about 8 minutes long, but it became 33 megabytes instead of 275. So almost 10 to 1, but still kind of big. So then what I wanted to do was use Media Encoder, and the problem I had is finding a compatible codec between the two. And I messed around with several when I finally just decided that I was going to export it as a Windows AVI file. So, and then I had a little bit of a problem because this is 8 minutes long. When I kind of did the standard settings, I went in here and said originally I left it at best and millions of colors, and then Windows wouldn't open the file, and if I took a snippet of the file, maybe a minute, it was okay. So something size related, I don't know. So anyway, I came back in, set my custom frames per second down to 5, changed this to thousands of colors, said okay, and then did an export that way for the Windows AVI. So ended up with a pretty big file. So here's our 5 frames per second file, and it's 3 gigabytes now. And at 10 frames per second, it's 6, which is too big. So now we can launch Windows Media Encoder, and so the first thing it does is it gives you this little wizard, so we can say convert a file, and you can save these settings when you're done, so that you don't do this every time. Although it saves everything, the input, the output, but you get a properties window where you can edit just the ones you want. So let's go browse to the file we want, which is this one, 5 frames per second. And let's just say we want this to be called now Screencast. Okay, let's say next, and then here I pick Windows Media Server Streaming because I'm trying to, the wizard kind of limits your codecs, and I'm trying to get to a particular codec, and that codec is here. It's called Screen Capture. So you pick Screen Capture, and here you can pick voice quality, and then you can pick a frame rate here, and I have found that this gets kind of ugly below 10, so I stay at 10 and unclick the ones you don't want here. Okay. Next you can enter information about your video, and then you can say, you can tell to begin converting when you click finish. I'm not going to click that right now just so we can look at some of the settings. Okay, so now we can get to what we've done just by going to properties. So our source is here, our output is here, our compression settings are here. So now if you want to see what really it did, you can kind of come in here, and you can see it's using the Windows Media Audio Voice 9 and then Windows Media Video 9. So here's an example of an edit. I want to go back to something I forgot to do to show, and that is under the compression, under edit. There'll be a tab that reflects whatever your current rate is for the settings you have. You click on that and you get some more options, and the one I'm interested in is this keyframe interval. If you get artifacts in the output, they tend to stay around for the remainder of this interval, so I think 8 seconds is too long. I usually set this down to 2, and then I do my export. So we ended up, we started with a 300 megabyte file. We had it grow into the gigabyte range, and so then when we were done, we ended up with a file right here, our screencast. Let's just make it fit. And let's highlight it and scroll over, and there it is. It's down to 4 megabytes, very manageable size for getting to the web.